Hi, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about playtesting in the Outer Worlds. The reason I want to focus on that is on some previous videos I talked about examples of bad playtesting that happened on my game, specifically Temple of Elemental Evil, where the external QA group decided they didn't like playing bards, so they never played them, and we shipped with a really bad bard crash bug. Even though I played with a all bard group, I never saw the bug, but they never played bards. So I was mad. And then on Vampire Bloodlines, almost the exact same thing. QA ignored our test plan, decided they didn't like Nosferatu because they were ugly, and just didn't play that clan. And again, we shipped with a bad crash bug if you played Nosferatu. That was unavoidable if you played Nosferatu. Meaning, if they had played Nosferatu just one time, they would have found that bug. Fortunately, that didn't happen on the Outer Worlds. We had an internal QA group who was awesome. I'd also like to point out we shipped with very few bugs. It was not, in fact, it was called out as being, wow, this is a very bug free Obsidian game. And I want to give props to that QA group and especially the lead, Taylor Swope. We not only generated a test plan together, but Taylor would come and talk to me once a week, just one on one. I would ask him how things were going. I would point out new features that had gone in the game that probably needed testing in the coming week, as if he was already on top of that. But I just liked saying, "Hey, this is something I'm really excited about. Test those science weapons." And he would tell me things about what they were thinking, like stuff that didn't feel right, or that they were seeing a lot of bugs on a particular thing, or something wasn't being fixed, and because it wasn't fixed, it was blocking testing other things. And that was super useful. Sometimes I just go down the hall and ask them how things were going that day. Um, I'd go by QA and I'd see them playing, and I'd go and I'd watch. Sometimes funny things were happening. Once I went in and said, "Hey, the game's not working for me. Is it the build bad?" And they were all playing. That's the day I found out something was very, very bad with my machine's memory. But part of the reason QA was so good in the Outer Worlds is it was internal. So it was very easy to have communication back and forth. But I want to call out specifically Taylor Swope, the lead of QA, when he saw how many different ways that you could play Outer Worlds. And that's difficult. It's hard. It's very hard to play test one of my games because usually there's so many builds you can make. The world is open. You can go where you want most of the time. You can make decisions on how to play and then change up how you're playing. And people will try doing extreme things like I'm going to kill everybody without talking to them, or I'm not going to ever kill anyone, but I still want to be able to finish this game in that play style. That there's just a lot to do. One way to assure that is Taylor made a little program you could run. It was really cool. I guess you'd call it an app, but it was a program, and you'd run it and it would tell you what kind of build to make, like what attributes you should take, what skills you should tag, um, and then spend points in. Even whether you should play with a controller or not, or on a particular platform. And what was great is that forced the people under him in QA to play differently all the time and possibly play some way they didn't think they would play, which was very useful for finding bugs because if your bugs were mostly in melee combat, or there was a bug on a particular perk that was mainly for melee players and people didn't play melee that much, and because of that were much less likely to even pick that perk, you're not going to see those bugs reported very often. They're also really good at taking existing bugs, and if you saw it happen again, they'd still report it, but they'd file that bug under another bug. Because one problem I had with external QA is they would just shove bugs at you, and then you'd fix one of them and discover that there are 90 other reports of the exact same bug. But now you have to go through this giant database and mark them all as fixed. Where in this one, it was, here's this bug, and we've seen it 90 more times. And once you mark it as fixed, boom. And they know to go back and test it, and then they can mark all those bugs as fixed. So the cool thing is, too, that I had a lot of time towards the end to play the game. Because the systems design was done. I wasn't doing programming, so I wasn't really on active bug fixing unless it was something that came in that was like, I don't think this rule works. So I started playing the game a lot. And I told you I keep notes on everything, and I found my notes on playing the Outer Worlds. I played through start to finish 16 times. Now, I did play more than that, but I'm discounting the ones where I couldn't finish because often earlier in the process, you literally couldn't finish. Either the maps weren't ready yet, or there were just crash bugs that happened, either because bugs would accumulate as you played, or there was something, specific to a later map that caused a problem. But within the last 9 months before it shipped, the game was incredibly stable start to finish, and I started doing playthroughs. And I have my playthroughs. So I thought I'd tell you, but with the 16 different ways I played Outer Worlds, especially for anyone out there, if you've only played it once, you may just want to play it another way just to see all the different things we planned for and thought you would do. Don't think that the only thing that we planned for was, well, do you work for Phineas or do you work for the board? There's other things you can try. But here are my playthroughs. I'm going to read through them. I got them on the other screen. Playthrough 1, named Sneaky McKill. He was a sniper. I tagged ranged and stealth. That's my classic playthrough on so many RPGs. I don't know why I'm always drawn to that, but I am. Playthrough 2 was What's Up, Dude? Generalist. What this means is, I don't remember what skills I tagged, but every time I got skill points, I spread them evenly through all the skills. This meant that I didn't really get a lot of them above 50, at least not for a long time, so I could start getting those specialty unlocks. But it was also cool because whenever I entered an area, I had a lot of options on how to do quests. Number 3 was Snuggler, not Smuggler. Snuggler was a pure dialogue character. I tagged dialogue and ranged. I did ranged just because if there was somebody you couldn't talk to, especially a monster, he just tried shooting it. That one was fun. I liked Sneaky McKill better. Number 4 was Butch McSwipey, melee character, low intelligence. That was the first time I wanted to go through and test all those dumb dialogues, many of which people said they wrote for me, and I just wanted to see how fun they were. It was also my first time playing controller only. And one of the things that came up was I found a map that I tried fighting the NPCs there 3 times. It was the Devil's Peak on Monarch. Very vertical, lots of platforms. Everybody on those platforms had ranged weapons and were just shooting down at me. And I was melee only. And I could usually take out people on the ground and maybe the first platform, but I was dead past that. Threw it back to QA and tagged my lead designer and said, this is too hard. Let's take a look at it. And they changed some things up. My 5th character was Dr. Leader. He was my low dexterity character. So that affected all the skills associated with dexterity as well. I tagged tech and leader so that, he was good at science and things like that. And he was good he had good companions, which were really important later in the game because his combat was terrible. So he needed companion support. My 6th one was Rango McLeader. My first Supernova playthrough. So this is a character that had to eat and drink and sleep, and fast travel was restricted to just going back to the ship. So a lot of times you would go back to the ship and then you had to fight your way back out. On Rango, I tagged ranged skills and leader skills. So he was good at shooting something, but if I got pretty close to him, I was glad I had those companions. My 7th playthrough was named Eric the Milt, after my producer. I decided to play the game the way Eric always played, which is I killed everything. I would often kill quest-giving NPCs before I talked to them. Because remember, in Outer Worlds, we didn't really tag NPCs as essential, which is what other RPGs call them. So you could kill anything. You could kill anybody anywhere. That uncovered some interesting bugs that got fixed. For the Eric DeMilt, of course, I tagged melee and ranged because that's all he did. He hit things and he shot things. And that worked. Thank you, Mr. DeMilt. My character 8 was Sneaker Speaker, which obviously I picked stealth and dialogue. This is the one and only time I tested story mode, which was the easy mode. So I had fun playing it. Combat's really easy on that mode. I'm glad we include it because some people just want to play through the story and meet the NPCs and have fun. And I agree. There should be a mode for that, and it shouldn't be called like baby mode or, pew pew mode. It should just be story mode. That's what you want, story, and that's fine. The next time, though, just to turn it on its head, I made Stealth Boss, and I played in hard mode, and I tagged Stealth and Leader. And the idea there was I tried to avoid combat when I could. When I couldn't, I had my friends take care of it. And that worked really well. My 10th one was Dr. Guns. This was my second time playing controller only. I also gave Dr. Guns a very, very low strength. So melee was not a good option for him. And for Dr. Guns, I tagged tech and ranged. So with Dr. Guns was, I think, my first playthrough where I really started to incorporate the stealth weapons. The science weapons into what I did, because they scaled with science and not your range skill, and that was super fun. If you haven't played through a playthrough where you really play around with the science weapons, they're a little goofy, but I like goofy. It's fun. It's super fun. My next character, my 11th character, was Doc Block. Again, controller only. This time I lowered 2 attributes. I had low charm and low temperament. This was not a character you wanted talking to anybody. So what I did is I tagged defense and tech, and basically just tried to have him solve issues with his science skills, but not through dialogue. He was an interesting character. He was a little harder than normal. Would have been nice to have played him on story mode. My 12th character was Teddy. Teddy was controller only. Hard mode, low perception. I tagged melee and dialogue. The reason I named him Teddy is after Teddy Roosevelt, which was talk softly but carry a big stick. Teddy, he tried to solve everything through dialogue. And if it didn't work, then he beat you up. That was a good character. I had more fun with him because by the time I played Teddy, a lot of the melee bugs that I found with Butch McSwipey had been fixed. So that was fun. For the 13th playthrough, I played Heavy Leader. Heavy Leader tagged ranged, but I only spent points in and used heavy weapons. I sold every non-heavy weapon that dropped. And I also tagged Leader, so I had my companions helping me out too. The companions were really useful for handling anything at distance. The 14th character I made was my Stealthy Leader. Now, this is the first time I used Taylor Swope's program, and it selected everything I did here. So I tagged Stealth and Leader. Taylor's random playthrough generator told me to, for the path, pursue the scientists and board path, but ultimately side with the board. The Stealth Leadership tags: below average dexterity, play on medium difficulty, complete as many companion quests as you can, choose Emerald Vale as the outcome you want, send power to the deserters. When you get to Monarch, you get the nav key to Stellar Bay. And when you get there, put MSI in charge of Monarch. And then the final thing it said to do was take every drug you find as soon as you get it. Like I said, Taylor's program tried to... This was a mixed up build. I did finish the game with this guy. I remember it was very, very hard because I was always going through withdrawal on something. Things would drop drugs would drop and I would take them and they weren't really useful for what I was doing. So like I have to talk to someone, but I just took a drug that dropped those skills, or I'd have to fight and my character was not in any position really to fight, but it was fun. It was, in some ways it made the game, even though I was playing on, I think I said medium difficulty, it was more like a Supernova playthrough. Anyway, that was fun. My 15th character was somebody I recovered from Fallout. I played the original Fallout game with this character, General Ist. General Ist was a generalist. Again, I spread my skill points out randomly. I did, however, tag ranged and stealth, so those things got a boost. That was a fun character to play. It was fun and weird to play a game with the same character 20 years later. And then finally, my 16th character was Dr. Stealth. Played on hard difficulty, and I tagged tech and stealth. And again, this was a character that Tried to avoid combat, and when he did, he used science weapons. Very fun character. Probably one of my second favorite characters next to, although my first one, Sneaky McKill, is probably ranged and stealth is probably my favorite one to do. So what are my insights from from this kind of thing is one, you really do have to play the game you're making. Two, it helps beyond words to have a good, thoughtful QA group, which I did on this. And third, if you're bugs, first you have to accept you're going to find bugs as you play, and you have to accept them, and you have to not try to avoid them. You have to, I want this thing to break. I want it to break on me so it doesn't break on you. And I think that really happened on Outer Worlds. We shipped a really good, stable game with lots of ways to play. And I hope this description of 16 ways I played it encouraged some of you to maybe try it again, maybe vary up the difficulty, try it with different items, try it with different involvement with NPCs, and see if you like the game that way. And, you might discover something in that path that you really enjoy. Anyway, have a good day.